Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. Sorry we're a couple minutes late. I'd like to call the North Carolina Local Government Commission meeting to order for 1:30 on November 2nd of 2021. Cindy, will you call the roll for quorum?
Yes, sir. Auditor Wood. Here. Secretary Marshall. Here. Secretary Penny.
Here.
Ms. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Bass.
Here.
Mr. Butler.
Mr. Butler, I believe you're muted on your end. If you're able to unmute, speak to us at all.
Come back. Mayor Paget. See Mr. Phil back virtual.
Here. That was Paget.
Was that Mr.
Here.
Thank you. Treasurer Falls here. Mr. Butler, are you able to speak?
We have a quorum.
We do.
Thank you all. If you'll, and from staff.
All right. Sharon Edmondson is in person. Tim Ramaki is here in person. Jennifer Wimmer in person. Susan McCullen is here in person. Debbie Tomasco in person. Lewis, can you still hear us? Lewis Andrews is here virtually. And Cindy Aiken, that's me, I'm here.
Thank you. If you'll stand and join us for our Pledge of Allegiance, and Secretary Marshall will lead us in our toast to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of North Carolina and pledge to the Old North State love, loyalty, and faith.
Treasurer, may I have permission to review quickly the housekeeping items?
Sure.
Thank you. This is Cindy Aiken, attorney for State and Local Government Commission. We are using the GoToWebinar platform for today's meeting, which is some virtual and some in person. The meeting is being broadcast live and recorded with the intention of publishing on our website. The written minutes will continue to be the official record of the meeting. If we have any technology problems that prevent us obtaining a usable recording, that will have no effect on the validity of actions taken by the LGC. Since we are continuing in the official state of emergency, we have to follow certain remote meeting procedures. Please remember that our microphones are very sensitive and will pick up all sound in the Dogwood conference room, so please have private conversations outside the room. It's important that we just have one person at a time talking so that everyone who's listening remotely can hear what's being said. And I'll speak to myself. Please try to remember, even though we know most of your voices, the public at large may not know who's speaking at any particular moment. So at least at the beginning, and if you can, throughout the meeting, identify yourself when you're speaking, making a motion or seconding motions. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. Those who are virtual, if you have to leave the meeting, please interject so we know if you must leave and when you rejoin. Those times go into the minutes. We'll take all votes by roll call, and those who make a motion and second will skip you for voting and deem you as being a yes. Please see www.nctreasurer.com on the LGC page for today's agenda. If there are any changes during the meeting, the chairman will announce those changes to the agenda. That's it.
Thank you, Cindy. As far as our conflict of interest statement, members, please take a moment to review the agenda that's been sent to you. Does anyone present have an actual, potential, or the appearance of a conflict of interest as to the matters that are before us today? Now, before we get on to the...
I am correct that Clayton is not on the agenda anymore. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
It's on our minds and hearts. It's just not on the agenda. So,
all right. Then I have no conflict.
I want to introduce our Chief of Staff, Ted Brand. Ted, thank you for being here for a short period. time. And I told them they'd be out here in 8 minutes, and they are. So we're honored to have the presence of the North Carolina County Commissioner Association here just for a few minutes. So Kevin, if you want to stand up and introduce your folks.
Mr. Treasurer, Auditor Wood, Secretary Marshall, members of the LGC, thank you so much for having us stop by today. We were having a meeting upstairs and delighted to have the opportunity to say hello. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize our Board of Directors member and Commissioner Viola Harris, who's a member of the LGC. Commissioner, we appreciate your service on this commission. I'm joined today with my Deputy Director, General Counsel Amy Basin, and our Director of Education Conferences, Jason King. And on behalf of the association and the 100 counties, just thank you so much for the work that you do to steer our local governments in the right direction, make sure that we're doing all the right things. I do have an opportunity to travel the country quite a bit. When I talk to my counterparts in other states and I talk about their LGC, they really scratch their heads. They're like, what is this LGC thing you're talking about? And it really is a jewel in North Carolina that we have. It's really what differentiates North Carolina from other states, makes us the good government state. So thank you for your oversight. Thank you for your leadership. Mr. Treasurer, thank you so much for the recognition.
Thank you, Kevin. You stay as long as you like, but I know you didn't budget to schedule this in, but we're going to pass this around. You asked me what's on the agenda today, so there's your copy.
Okay, thank you.
We are going to be talking later about the Viable Utility Reserve, which I think is of high interest to the county. So with that, I'd ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 5th.
So moved. State Auditor Beth Wood. Second
Viola Harris.
We have a motion and a second here in person, and without objection, anybody that makes a motion and a second will be considered a yes vote. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Thank you. That was Wood and Marshall. So Secretary Penny,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Bass,
Aye.
Mayor Padgett,
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck,
Aye.
Mr. Butler. You able to unmute yourself, sir? Okay. And Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's turn the meeting over to Sharon to discuss the unit letters, which I assume we'll take individually.
Right, the first item on the agenda is for the town of Ayden. This is a miscellaneous action item, a change of a bank rate. They were approved in August for an installment purchase contract of $2.2 million with BBC. After that approval, they reissued their RFP for financing to see if they could get a better rate, and they were able to do so with Southern Bank, down from 2.16 at BB&T or Truist to 2.09 at Southern Bank. They received a unit letter, and I'll turn it over to Susan to review that.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. In June of 2021, the LGC staff sent a letter to the town of Ayden concerning the audited financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2020. The town's audited financial statements had not been received by us until June 7th of 2020, 11 months after the fiscal year end. So we were concerned about that. It had also been late for several years in a row. The general fund percentage of fund balance relative to expenditures had declined over the last 3 years, and we were also concerned about that and wanted to know what their plans were for that. The town responded on June 22nd, and they had a good response. They noted that to improve the town's finances, they had eliminated the use of fund balance in their 2021 budget for the first time in 14 years, they said. They had also reduced some capital spending and they were monitoring expenses to forecast items before they became problems. They were doing some training on department heads, and they had revised their town's undesignated fund balance policy from 10% to 20%. They had also acknowledged that they had some problems with turnover, and that was the biggest reason for the delay. At one point, they had 4 different finance officers or interim finance directors in 1 year. So that was the reason for some of the delay. The town had formed an audit team that includes the town manager, the finance director, other financing staff, and that was going to be focusing more deliberately on meeting the timeline. Their response said that we would have their 2021 audit October 31st. I checked this morning. We don't have it yet, but the auditors have completed field work and are developing the financial statements. And we should have the audit by December 1st, before the grace period is over. At this point, the finance officer is not expecting or has not had any findings reported by the auditors. So we found the response to be satisfactory.
Susan Joanne Floyd, the finance director, is on the phone with us.
Okay, thank you.
Joanne.
Joanne Floyd.
Joanne Floyd, yes, sir.
Thank you, Joanne, for joining us. Members and staff's recommendation is to approve. So we'll get a motion, a second on the table, and then we'll go to discussion, if that's okay.
There was a question?
Yeah, we're going to get to it.
Oh, okay.
I jumped the gun.
Okay.
Motion. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve, Viola Harris.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second Josh Bass.
Thank you. And now for discussion. Madam Alder.
Just a quick question. Who's developing the financial statements?
The auditor is developing the financial statements, but the firm is of sufficient size that they are going to be able to have the segregation that they need. This is a Cherry Becker audit, but it is a yellow book, and I asked her that.
Yes. Is this the first time in 14 years that they've had to come before us?
They were here in August.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I thought they had been here before.
Yeah, they have been.
14 years of fund balance usage,
Yes.
not related to any financial personnel turnover.
That's right.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But it is related to the low fund balance.
But wouldn't that kind of thing have gotten them on a watch list a long time ago?
They are on the unit assistance list. Yes. Yeah.
And have been for.
Hmm?
And have been for.
And have been for a while.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, but their general fund is low. It was the percentage of expenditures and transfers out was at 22%. The 50% of their population group was 26%. So they're not terribly low, but they are lower than the 50% of the average that we like to see.
Ma'am, Mr. Treasurer.
Yes, ma'am.
The issue is we've already approved this, and they're just getting a different rate.
Yeah, I know, which is better.
Yeah.
But I was questioning about the CPA firm.
Yeah.
Because I just.
Oh, I have
Good. You're ahead of me, way ahead of me.
I have the same questions. So.
You're having an impact.
Yes.
All of you are. So I have a motion, second on the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Okay, that's Town of Hayden, Harris, and Bass. Motion second. Auditor Wood.
Aye.
Secretary Marshall. Aye. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Mayor Paget.
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Butler. No. No audio from Mr. Butler. Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. And she says Joanne or Julian?
Joanne.
Joanne, did you have any comments? Probably not after we've already approved it, but
No, sir, but we thank you very much for approving it for us.
thank you.
Reconsidering it again.
Thank you so much. We're now to Garysburg Sewer District in Northampton County.
If the commission agrees, I'd like to do the next two together. They're both based on the same set of financial statements.
Without objection.
The Garysburg Sewer District in Northampton County is applying for a refunding of some GO debt. The expected net present value savings is approximately $70,000 or 21% of the refunded bonds. There's no extension of maturities on that, and that's a $500,000 issue. Northampton County itself is also seeking to do a refunding of $12.3 million. Their net present value savings are $2.4 million, or 21% of the refunded bonds. And again, no extension of maturities on that refunding. The county did have a unit letter, which I will turn over to Susan for explanation.
So the county, on April 16th of this year, we sent a letter to the county related to their June 30, 2020 statements. We got the county's audited financials for that year on February 12th, 2021, 8 months after the fiscal year end. So we're concerned about that. Also, the county has been late on their audits for several years and is working diligently to improve that. We also noted that there were several material weaknesses noted by the county's auditor, one of which was improper bank reconciliations that were not accurate. There were some funds that weren't budgeted and a deficit in 3 funds. We got the county's letter on July 7th. The response was a good response. The finance officer has improved the bank reconciliation process. There is the Garysburg Water District, which had not been budgeted, was presented to the board and approved in fiscal year 2021 and will be budgeted going forward. I will tell you that I heard yesterday that the finance officer for the county resigned Friday. I spoke to the county manager this morning, and she had been making some really good progress compared to where the town had been in the past. But the town, I've spoken with the board chair and as well as a consultant that he is working with. The county has already appointed an interim finance officer and is planning on hiring a third-party bookkeeper to come in and help them keep their books up until they can recruit a permanent staff person. So the response was satisfactory.
Is anybody on the phone from there?
We have the auditor, Alan Thompson.
Yes.
We have bond counsel and potentially financial advisors.
I think the board chair is on the phone as well.
Welcome to all of you. I wish Kevin Leonard would have stayed a little longer to hear this news. The staff's recommendation is to approve. And do I hear a motion?
So moved. Auditor Wood.
Second.
Motion, Alder Wood, second by Secretary Marshall. Any further discussion? Was question for the board chair. This is the treasurer. The departure of your chief financial officer, that's at Northampton County, right?
Correct.
I'm sure that departure is public at this point. Was that a evolution or a revolution?
Susan, what's the board chair's name?
Charles Tyner.
I don't have him on the call, sir.
Okay. She resigned Friday, so it was her choice.
I got that part.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if
Something
you,
had been
okay.
evolving for a long period of time. Or just
No.
kaboom?
Kaboom.
Where did she come from?
She's been there over 20 years. She's a long-term employee.
And
She has not been finance officer, but about maybe a couple of years.
She retired. Got another job.
I don't know. I haven't talked to her since.
okay. We have a motion second on the floor. No further discussion. The clerk will call the roll.
Motion Wood, second Marshall. Secretary Penny?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Bass?
Aye.
Mayor Paget?
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Thank you. And Mr. Butler, any luck? To unmute?
No.
Our Texas knows Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to go with the consent agenda from Lenore Community College down through the city of Charlotte.
No, sir. Sharp, are you pulling?
Yes.
Well, please say that.
Okay. And we'll vote on Charlotte Mecklenburg Hospital Authority second. So with that, let's get this open for discussion. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda of Lenore Community College, Durham Housing Authority, United Methodist Home, Plantation Village, and 2 entries for the city of Charlotte?
So moved, Auditor Wood.
Second. Scott Paget.
Thank you, Mayor Paget. Motion second being made. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
All right. Secretary Marshall? Aye. Thank you. Secretary Penny?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Bass?
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Don't want to skip Mr. Butler just in case.
All right.
And can he send us a message of any kind? Is there anything we can do, Deb? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. There are any of those folks on the phone?
From the consent agenda?
No.
I'm actually not sure. We usually don't track it
All
for the
right,
consent
thank
agenda.
you. Members, the next agenda item is Charlotte Mecklenburg Housing Authority. The reason I wanted to have this pulled is that I'll say publicly, as the state treasurer or our staff, our ability to analyze these complicated, esoteric, synthetic, financial, investment banking type of deals is pretty much zero. And obviously, this is on our agenda. I'm going to entertain a motion in a second. But we need in the future to make sure that we're voting on things that we actually understand. And I'm not sure this transaction is one of those. But this is a long, we've had a long discussion about hospital authorities. Seen a recent report come out of the Treasurer's Office where we partnered with Johns Hopkins University that talked about the multi-billions of dollars of tax benefit that these entities are getting in relation to the charitable care they're supposed to be offering. Anytime that happens, then it's the sales tax, the income tax, and the property taxes of these communities in the state they get highly impacted. So not going to make a big deal of this right now. I'm just saying that unless some board member thinks that we are equipped to actually analyze these highly esoteric, synthetic financial investment banking arrangements for interest rate swaps and all this, that, and the other. Somebody thinks that we have the subject matter expertise to pull this off all the time. Feel free to contact me later. So I know that took a shorter amount of time than anyone expected, but is anyone on the phone from the hospital authority? Okay. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the Charlotte Mecklenburg Hospital Authority, otherwise known as Atrium Health, for its remarketing agent agreements.
Can I make a different motion? I move that we pull this from this agenda today simply because we don't have the expertise to analyze it and bring it to this group for a true recommendation.
Who do you have in mind that's going to do the analyzing? I'm not sure I understood that.
You asking me?
Yeah, well, yes.
Well, I'm just saying, the treasurer's already said that this staff doesn't have the expertise to analyze it, so I'm not voting on something that the staff can't truly recommend as something we need to do. So I'm not sure who analyzes it. I just know I'm not voting on this one.
Let me walk that back a little bit, because I have incredible confidence in our staff and their ability to analyze things.
That's not the point.
So
You said expertise to look into these types of instruments. That's a difference in competency and expertise.
So
sorry, I misspoke, but we don't have the expertise. The staff doesn't have expertise.
So are we asking the authority to come back with a more detailed description of what they're wanting to do? Is that what we're hoping for?
I'm going to ask staff to comment on, this is a part of a puzzle, right, staff? This agenda item is part of a puzzle. And that puzzle is something that sort of gets put together, and then it gets...
So let me, this is Tim Ramaki, LGC staff. So in 2018, these are the bonds that they issued and were approved to issue. They issued a series of bonds. I think they went from A, B, C, D, G, F, maybe up to G or F or G. So 6 or 7 series of bonds, and they were all different types. They call these multimodal bonds. And what that means is you can issue bonds that are fixed rate, 20 years, 30-year term. You can issue bonds that are variable rate that get repriced every week. You can issue bonds, in the case that we're looking at here, they issued bonds that matured in 3 years, 5 years, and 7 years. They call those put bonds.
Call it what?
A put bond. So in 3 years you have a put. You have to pay off the bondholders or issue new bonds to replace them. And then the other thing they did was issue short-term variable rate bonds, index bonds. That's what they call them. So
it's 4 different groups.
At least, yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
So when you go all the way through G, what is that?
Well, it's because I can't remember all the different kinds they issued, but some were the same type. Like there's, I think, 2 different types of put bonds here, 2 different types of index bonds. But the rationale for the hospital is it lowers their cost of borrowing, because by issuing short-term interest rates are usually lower than long-term interest rates. Their plan is to pay off these bonds over 20, 30 years. But by issuing them in these little, 3-year segments, 5-year segments, 7-year segments, they can get a lower interest rate during that period of time, then refinance it, keep a low rate, as opposed to paying a long-term higher rate if you issue just straight out 30-year bonds. So that was the goal, to kind of like blend or diversify the different interest rates for their debt structure.
Let me interrupt you. I think everybody understands the terms that you used, and I think everybody understands that you can issue bonds with different maturities. But it seems like that this is a sort of a regurgitation of where they made a bet that interest rates were going to move in a certain direction. And the last one we just went through with this group, the interest rates were going to move. They were betting the interest rates were going to move in a different direction. Interest rates did not move in that direction, which ended up costing them potentially $21 million more or something like that. Is this one of those?
Not really. I mean, in general, shorter term debt is got a lower interest rate than longer term debt.
That's okay.
The only time that doesn't happen is usually when you're getting ready for a recession, depression, and you've got inverted yield curve. So when we approved these bonds back in 18, the assumption was that, they would eventually reprice them, resell the bonds, which is what they're coming to do now. And to do that, you have to have an agent, a banker, to put those bonds back out in the market and sell them again. So that's what's happened. So the first ones are coming due December 1st. I forget which series it is, but that's the
First one on your list.
yeah, 2018 E series is the first one. So they're variable rate index bonds. They're paying a very low interest rate right now because the index, I think, is the 5th month, so it's like
0.3%.
Not even that much. Yeah. So which is the plan. That was the plan, as opposed to paying a long-term high rate. But what they need now is the bank to refinance or to resell, remarket the bonds as they come due.
Well, I actually understand
and that's
that
the
part.
request.
Okay. So that's different than the one we just went through a few months ago, where they were making a bet on interest rates futures. This is different than that. This is just a bond that matured that we previously approved. And now it's almost,
Or not refund, but
a refinance.
It is, in a sense.
So
it's really it's marketing. But
what I said in the beginning was too harsh, so I apologize to anybody listening. I thought we were back in this vortex we were in last time, where if we didn't do something by this particular LGC meeting, that this institution was going to be harmed by, they made a bet against interest rates, and interest rates went in a different direction. So this is not that.
And I think we've got their bond counsel, Alan Roberts, with Rob Bradshaw is on the phone if we have questions for him.
Was he on the phone earlier?
I don't know if he was or not, but Debbie was just telling me that
he's indicated that he's here.
He's here. So he probably
Did somebody contact him?
I don't think so. I don't know.
No, he just indicated through
Okay,
his
because I asked earlier if anybody was on the call from, they said nobody's there. Okay. Well, Mr. Robertson, you have the floor if you'd like to comment on this.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. I'm sorry I'm not as conversant with GoToWebinar as I probably should be. I was trying to figure out how to get recognized. Yes, as Tim just summarized, there were 4 of the series of the bonds that were approved and issued in 2018, the 2018 B, C, D, and E bonds. They were each in the amount of $50 million. They all have a maturity of January 15, 2048. So they have not matured. They have a final maturity of 2048. But as Tim mentioned, how they started was either in a long-term rate mode, which is a fixed rate for a period of years, or in a so-called floating rate note mode, where it had a floating rate based on the SIFMA index for a period of years. And those periods varied. The first one, 2018E, the period's ending on December 1. There's another one next year in March, another year out in March. And so they were staggered out. And what the authority is seeking to do, and that was the plan all along, was to remarket these, convert to a new mode, and the plan on December 1st of the 2018 E's is to convert to another long-term rate mode and set a fixed rate of interest out through 2025. That is, for the next 4 years, it would have bear a fixed rate, and then that process would occur again. And as Tim indicated, what you're doing is you're trying to set, in this case, fixed rates, but only for a portion of the life of the bonds to stay on the short end of the yield curve instead of setting a fixed rate all the way out to 2048. So this is some of their bonds are fixed rate to maturity out for 30 years. This is an example where some of them have rates that are set for periods. They have some true floating rate, bear rate demand bonds that are bear rate bonds, but there are no swaps associated with this. So unlike, Mr. Treasurer, what you were remembering with the 21E bonds where there was a swap, there are no swaps, no hedges related to these bonds whatsoever.
Thank you.
In fact, I'm Biff McGilvery. We've already released transactions before. Multimodal bonds, I forget which one, was Catawba Valley Hospital. Tim, we're not strangers to this, and we every once in a while they generally have a cadre of financial advisors back there, they being the issuer, and it's not a case of liars we figure, but we have to sit there and really kind of go behind what they're saying, but we do have basically the common sense to get there. Thank God there is no swap associated with it. We've had that before, and that is a bet on interest rates. And when interest rates move the wrong way, there's generally a fairly sizable termination fee that's associated with it. And you're buying your way out of the transaction. Your theoretically, the cost of money never changes from what you locked into when you did the original deal. But the multimodal deal is basically just what Alan said. The hospital is really looking at the debt as being long-term debt. For the most part, when you're in your shorter-term modes, the bondholder's looking at it as being a short-term loan because they can get out of it, so you get short-term rates. And as long as it keeps rolling like that, everything is great. When we're in the position that we're in now, when everybody's expecting to see rates escalate, people want to lock now for longer-term rates in anticipation of having the short-term rates trend upwards. And so that, Alan, does that capture it? Alan, drop off.
Yes, exactly, right. It is a multimodal structure, and again, yes. So again, if you have sort of a portfolio of debt where you sort of have a diversified strategy, it's not all fixed rate. There's some variable, some shorter, some longer. That's sort of the general thrust of it.
And the thing about it is we get into the remarketing aspect of it. When they decide to start moving toward another mode, you do have to have a remarketing agent. And they, in fact, set the rates. It's not an auction type of thing. The remarketing agent will set the rates at a level they think will clear the puts, and that can put them back out in the new mode. And in the event that does not happen, for whatever good reason, then you get into another ball of wax. But in this particular case, the remarketing agent, the change up to a new mode is fairly standard.
Given that, Mr. Treasurer, I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you. And once again, I take responsibility for being confused between intermodal versus the interest rate swap environment that we just went through a few months ago with the same issuer. And what I said, a board member relied on that to make a motion, which I apologize to her. With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept this intermodal issuance. of this?
Move to approve, Mike Philbeck.
Seconds.
Just lots of motions and lots of seconds. So any further discussion? I will say from my standpoint that when we're dealing with these nonprofits that have $7-8 billion in the bank, that more to come on all that, actually. So thank you. We have a motion second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
The clerk heard Philbeck motion with Paget second. Charlotte Mecklenburg Hospital Authority. Aye. Auditor Wood.
Aye.
Secretary Marshall. Aye. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harris.
Aye.
You, Mr. Bass.
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye. Oh,
And Mr. You're, yeah.
I'm changing mine though.
Oh, it's, all right. Treasurer Falwell changes to no. As Mr. Butler.
No.
No. Okay.
All right. Thank you, members. We now have some miscellaneous items, not miscellaneous items. We're going to need several votes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and adjournment vote. So we're going to try to get through these correctly and quickly.
Right, the next item on the agenda then is a non-action item for Robeson County. It's just a rate modification with Truist, so no vote needed there. The next item is the VUR status report. This is something I know commission members have been interested in. And we do have somebody on the phone with DEQ. I'm not exactly sure if it's Shadi or...
Shadi.
Right, so Shadi Escap, the director of the Division of Water Infrastructure, is on the phone if y'all have questions specific to that. But very quickly, I'll just run through these. These are the units that have been awarded VUR grants. The first is Kingstown. That contract was approved at the latter part of 2020, first part of 2021. And remember, these have to be approved by both the Commission and the State Water Infrastructure Authority. So far, out of the $250,000 that was awarded, a contract's been awarded for $100,000 of that. They are expected to submit that final report the middle of this month. They also are working with Cleveland County Water and the other municipalities in that region, Lawndale, Foston, and Polkville. That information will be used along with Kingstown's AIA results, which is what we're expecting next week, to start working on the merger and regionalization feasibility study for that area. And we're optimistic that that's going to work out for all of those municipalities with Cleveland Water. Cliffside Sanitary District is also under contract with Tetra Tech. That contract was awarded at the end of 2020, first of 21. 230,000 of the 400,000 is under contract. That was awarded in May. They have asked for an extension to complete their work to March 31st due to delays in acquiring data. If you'll remember, there's no staff at Cliffside other than our staff here. We have one person under contract that handles the operation issues, and that was a transition during the grant period. And there's been some delays in transitioning from the former contracted company to the new individual that we contracted. They also are doing some work outside the scope of the VUR funding due to a very real risk from erosion to the main pump station and the emergency generator. That's some work that's going to have to be done, or we run a very real risk of losing that pump station, which would be extremely detrimental to the operations of that plant. Moving on to Robertsonville, Eureka, Pikeville, and Eureka and Pikeville. Robertsonville, of course, is part of a group AIA package with all of the municipalities in Martin County. Several scopes have been submitted. DEQ is in the process of reviewing those. There has not been a contract awarded for that yet. That has been slowed by some concern by at least one of the municipalities, possibly more than one, about the loss of local control if they were to go to a regional solution. So the EU is convening another meeting to talk about the potential outcomes of regionalization feasibility and try to alleviate their concerns there. Eureka and Pikeville both have grants awarded, but neither is under contract at this point. Those are all working in conjunction with the other Wayne County entities, Fremont, Goldsboro, and the county. Goldsboro is leading that partnership, and the scopes for all those contracts are being worked on as well. There is a partner meeting scheduled for either later this week or first of next week to continue moving on those projects.
Sharon, just a quick clarification too. These were just procuring one distressed unit updates. Other grants were awarded to other units, but we just...
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear. These are just the units that we are managing finances for and the grants that have been awarded to them. And Shadi Escaf's on the phone if you have questions for him, or I'll be happy to try to answer questions.
Any questions? Where we're voting?
No action on that item. That was information only.
On roads?
The VUR status report.
All right. Okay. You are correct. All right. Now East Laurinburg.
Right, the next item in front of you is an action item. This is a resolution to impound the books and assume control of the financial affairs of the County of East Laurinburg. I believe you're all aware of the investigative report that the State Auditor's Office issued on October 20th, finding that the town had lacked sufficient policies, procedures, and internal controls, resulted in questionable expenses and the personal use of town funds by an employee. We also had previously issued the town a warning, which talked about its lack of audits, their failure to maintain an accounting system. We also had an issue with the 21-22 budget, which they submitted to us for review. The budget did not balance and it did not properly levy the property tax. We asked them to correct those items and we did not hear back from them on that. So I can't say if they corrected them or not. They just never told us if they did. So you have that resolution before you for us to impound the books, and then an accompanying resolution appointing Ann Cutler as the finance officer and Tiffany Anderson as the deputy finance officer. Both of those are staff members in fiscal management.
We have a resolution in front of us. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I would like to make that motion.
Phil Becker, Patrick. Okay, do I hear a second?
I will second. Josh Bass.
Thank you, Josh. Any further discussion?
I have a question. It's not precipitated by this, but it's not directly related to this. If we take over, does the local government commission have the ability to change the tax rate? I've never asked that question before.
Great question. We have the ability to change the tax rate.
We do, as long as the tax bills have not actually been sent out yet. There's a limited time frame you have that you can change the tax rate.
Good question. All right. Any other discussion? Members, if you have not seen the ballot today for East Laurinburg, today's voting day, you should, and you're out talking to people about your responsibilities as a member of the local government commission. There are 4 city council people on the ballot. There's 4 city council slots on the ballot and 1 mayor slot on the ballot. And there's only 1 name on the ballot for 5 slots. So I guess the school of government's going to have to determine if there's only 1 elected official, does that constitute a quorum or not? But I don't want to I got a lot of things going on in my head. I don't want to say that the person that's on the ballot has anything to do with the auditor's investigation and her her report is obviously public, but if you want to explain to anybody who wants to listen about your role as a member of this LGC, when you show them that ballot and this audit report, nothing tells something quite as clearly as that does. There's no names on the ballot.
Can they have write-ins?
Yes.
Write-ins.
So I think somebody is going to write you in.
I was going to say.
The two of us can do it together.
All right, polls aren't closed yet, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
isn't East Laurinburg the town we had recommended back in the spring that the General Assembly de-charter?
Yes. Vehemently, unanimous.
Yeah.
Once LGC votes on this resolution, would it be appropriate for us as the governing body then to send that request once again?
I've sent that request about 7 times in the last 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I don't know if board members saw the lead editorial by the Laurinburg Exchange. I don't know if you saw that or not, but we probably should send that to you. And I'll paraphrase. The state treasurer has done what the treasurer's office has done what they're supposed to do. The auditor's office has done what they're supposed to do. The local government commission has done what they're supposed to do. Now it's time for the legislature to do their jobs.
Yep, I remember that.
In the spirit of Halloween, it's time to start chiseling the headstone of East Laurinburg. That's what it said. So, not something we take lightly. I will, somebody be responsible for getting that editorial to the members. That'd be great. A motion, second is on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
I have a motion by Mayor Paget, second Mr. Bass, basically 2 resolutions, take control and appoint finance officers. Auditor Wood. Aye. Secretary Marshall.
Aye.
Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Ms. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
And
our next item is resolution adopting criteria for evaluating a city for financial rehabilitation.
All right, this resolution is a result of Senate Bill 314, the LGC Toolkit Bill is what it's commonly referred to. This was a bill that gives the commission several different authorities and obligations regarding municipalities. It does only apply to municipalities. And the criteria in this particular resolution applies to only a very limited subset of those municipalities. However, it does require the commission to subject those individual units to this evaluation process. Those municipalities are ones that the LGC is control of the finances, or individual municipalities that have been referred to the commission by DEQ, OSA, or the individual unit's independent audit firm. We have no referrals at this time, so right now it's only going to apply to the units that we are in control of. These are the criteria that we have developed for evaluating municipality for financial rehabilitation. The first is population trend. We'll look at least a 5-year trend of the city's population and the population projections for the city's dominant county. We don't have projections down at the municipal level. We'll look at both of those data points as part of the evaluation. The second item is property valuation trend. We'll look at the trend in the city's valuation of taxable property based on the 3 most recent municipal valuations performed by the county or counties in which the municipality is located. Declining property values, of course, indicates declining revenues and or increasing tax rates, which can only be sustained so far. before the city starts to lose revenue. The third item is fund balance available. This is a common benchmark that we use in evaluating fiscal health of all tax levying local governments. And for these purposes, we look at a 5-year trend. As a fund balance available is a percentage of expenditures transfers, which is the same benchmark that we use. A pattern of declining fund balance or a fund balance that repeatedly falls significantly below the peer group signals great potential for cash flow issues. The fourth criteria would be time of compliance with the annual audit requirement. And again, we'll be looking at a 5-year trend. That should eliminate any one-off situations where somebody's audit was late just for an unusual event or staff turnover. And the last criteria would be compliance with the Local Government Budget Fiscal Control Act. Once again, we'll look at a 5-year trend, and this will be based on recurring significant deficiencies and material weaknesses in the annual audit report, or other failures to comply that we noted during our work with the individual units. The last item is governance. This criteria is measured by trend and engagement in city government, measured by long-term vacancies on the governing board or lack of declared candidates for the governing board during municipal elections, or results of investigations of the city related to fiscal management by oversight agencies, including the state auditor's office and law enforcement. So in this resolution, we're asking you to adopt these criteria, and this is as required by the statute. It also directs commission staff to apply the criteria to each of the unit of governments that it applies to, which again right now is just the units that we're managing the finances for. And then finally directs staff to report back to the commission the result of the analyses after applying the criteria. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You say it just applies to ones you've taken over, not anybody on the UAL? No, it's a very limited subset.
You want to recognize the staff who worked so diligently on this?
We had a number of staff members that worked on this. Sam Watts did a tremendous amount of work at the General Assembly to get this bill adopted for us. And Debbie Tomasco, Cindy, Susan, myself, who am I missing? I think that was pretty much it there. But we worked quite a bit to try to fine tune and hone this to where we felt like this was a documented process that we could follow that would not be subjective.
It's a process that allows us to use the tools in the toolbox.
Yes.
Well, I think it's all well and good, but it's just, to me, it's like another layer of things we've already done. Again, I think it's good. It's all obvious, but if you can't get the General Assembly to act on something like East Laurinburg, that's where the failure is. And let's say we get these reports back in January or whenever, and I don't know if the General Assembly will be in session then, but I would hope there's going to be some action as a result of the findings of these reports. That's what we need.
So, Mayor Padgett, the Senate Bill 314 gives us some more tools. This is the first step in the process.
Uh-huh.
There are other actions we can take based on the results of these evaluations.
Okay.
This is just the first step.
Nobody ever said government was swift.
All right. I asked for a motion a second. Okay. Alex Trebek
You may
says
have asked,
no.
but nobody's
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Move approval.
Thank you, Secretary Penny. Second.
Second, Josh Bass.
Thank you. Motion second being made. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Adopting valuation criteria for financial rehabilitation. Penny motion, Bath second. Auditor Wood.
Aye.
Secretary Marshall. Aye. Ms. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Mayor Paget. Treasurer Fall. Whoop, wait. I'm sorry. Is that aye or no?
Mine was an aye.
Okay, sorry. My hearing failed for a moment. Treasurer Falwell.
Aye. Thank you, members. We'll now go to the unit updates, starting with Eureka. So Eureka, Cliffside, and Robersonville. The first two are updates. Robersonville, Kingstown, Pikeville, and Spring Lake will be updates with action items.
Yes. Yes. So do you want to vote together on them all on one, or do you want to vote individually?
Without objection, we'll just vote together. Do I have an objection?
Okay.
Hearing none.
All right.
They don't get picked by the vote.
So for the sake of time, I am only going to talk about the units that have items that I'm asking you to vote on, but you have a unit summary for all of the units that we're managing the finances for. So I'm going to be talking first about the town of Robertsonville then. That's the first one that I need a vote on. So it's on page 6 of the unit update packet that you got. There's the items that we need to vote on for Robertsonville are there's a resolution that is going to name a staff employee, Angela Bagwell, as the finance officer. The LGC person that was the finance officer, Becky Gigaleski, is going to become the deputy finance officer. And we're also providing authority for accounts, bank account signatory changes. This is a good change. The town has hired a permanent finance officer, and that person is now assuming that role and working on our behalf in the town. So she's going to continue to be trained, and we're going to stay closely involved in the deputy finance officer role, but the town is beginning to assume and learn what they need to do on a daily basis. So this is significant progress in Robertsonville. A couple of budget amendments, appropriating some insurance proceeds for a damage to a fire truck, and moving some funds from contingency to building maintenance for some building repairs. I want you to notice the change in the format for your unit summaries. We've tweaked these a little bit this month. At the top of the unit summaries, you'll see LGC action needed. And if you're not going to have to take any action for that month, we'll indicate that. We've also included a middle section, goal progress and fiscal summaries. And as we're making progress with goals, we're telling you what we've done each month and which of the goals in our exit strategy that progress relates to. And then at the very bottom of all the unit summaries, we've got the goal summary section. This is directly from the fiscal accountability agreements that we executed as exit strategies with these communities. And so you can see, and our staff can see, and if we choose to share these with their boards, some of them are being shared and some of them are not. If we choose to share these with these existing boards in some of the communities, they will see where we're making progress against the fiscal accountability agreements. I want to keep those in front of us all the time so that we manage against them. Also, for the town of Robertsonville, we've been there a year. So you have, for your information, a document that Becky G. Gillespie and Kendra Bull presented to their board on October 12th with a list of items, the high-level list of the things that we've accomplished since we've been there, and it's quite a extensive list. You've got a copy of the resolution that I mentioned that appoints Angela Bagley, and then you've also got a copy of the agenda, the budget amendment. Moving
I think
on.
those changes, excuse me, I think those changes you made are excellent. It makes it much easier to follow.
Thank you. I'm glad you like them. I appreciate that. The next one we're going to talk about is the town of Pikeville. It's on page 14 in your packet. And the town of Pikeville, I'm going to need to get you to vote on a budget amendment that's related to the Powell Bill Fund. The town has gone out for a bid on some street work, and the bids are a little bit higher, so they need to increase the budget. Here's your goals here, and then the goal summary for Pikeville. And that item is the only item for Pikeville. The next item I need you to vote on is Spring Lake. And Spring Lake is on page 16 of the packet. And I can find it now. I've got my pages all out of order. Okay. There are, your summary indicates that there's no actions, current actions, but there are actually a couple of actions that we figured out after this summary was completed that we did need to do. Let me preface my conversation with Spring Lake with letting you know that the interim town manager and finance officer, Samantha Woolenwater, has turned in her resignation. She resigned yesterday, and she's beginning to work a 30-day notice. So she'll be employed with the town through December 2nd. But she's landing in a really something that is going to be a wonderful spot for her and for them. She's going to work at Triangle J Cog. Is that right, Sharon? Is that the right cog?
That's Mid Carolina.
Oh, huh?
Mid Carolina.
Mid Carolina. I knew I had it wrong. Apologize, Mid Carolina. Mid Carolina Cog as the Director of Local Government Services. So she'll be continuing to work with North Carolina local governments in that COGS region. And we have a significant number of units that need assistance there. And in that role, she will continue to be assigned to Spring Lake in the short term to help them until they get through this period of transition. So
let me clarify that.
Yes. Sir?
She's been driving this Spring Lake situation.
Yeah, she has
She's put in a 30-day notice.
Mm-hmm.
She's taken the job with the COGS, but her initial primary responsibility at the COG will be to continue driving Spring Lake during the transition.
Correct.
Can she drive Spring Lake in that position?
Yes, she will be a contract employee from
being the county city manager.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If she's gonna be the director of a division at the COG, I found that hard to believe that she could be an employee of the town.
Well, she won't be an employee. Yes, she won't be employed.
Contract employee. Same
Yes.
difference.
Yeah.
She'll be running the town.
She'll be running the town. Yes.
Okay.
She will be.
Wasn't there another lady associated with the COG that was helping in Spring Lake?
Yes, Nancy Medlin, and Nancy will continue to be assigned there as well for the near future. We'll have to. We're at the point we need to make some decisions about what the staffing in Spring Lake and all that looks like. And so we'll be doing that after the first of the year.
Right.
Okay.
After the first of the year?
Well, or late in over the next few weeks, really, because we'll need to begin doing it before then. Yeah.
So we'll be posting?
We haven't gotten that far with our decision,
okay.
But we'll have to decide how they're going to do how they're going to manage their processes well and permanently. So
we're looking at all options.
Yeah, we
right
are.
Now.
And the town attorney is still there?
Yes. Yes. Okay, so we have a resolution with that change in mind. Remember, Samantha Woolenwaber is the finance officer as well as the interim town manager. So we are changing how we have our appointed positions there. David Irwin of our staff will be the finance officer. And Samantha will now be the deputy finance officer. And so there's not any other changes at that point. Note that I might have to bring something back to you next month because some of these folks that are account signatories on Spring Lake or the election are not running for re-elections. I might have to change that again next month. The other change that we're bringing is a budget ordinance change for the town of Spring Lake. And on page 19 of this packet, you'll see that we are adding a section to their budget ordinance authorizing the Secretary of the Commission and the town finance officer to take actions, execute and deliver a contract, agreement, or other document on behalf of the Commission that may be necessary for the purpose of collecting town receipts or expending appropriations from funds. We're just we need to be able to execute contracts on behalf of Spring Lake so that we can keep the town running and so that we don't have to bring every action to this commission. So it's to keep from bringing immaterial things to the town, to the commission. So
did I understand you to say that some of the councilmen or commissioners, or whatever they call themselves there, are not running for re-election?
Yeah, the mayor is not running, so he's not on the ballot. The mayor pro tem, Aziz, is not running. So I'm going to have to replace those in our resolution next month. But I needed to get this one done today.
So get some good news about Spring Lake and that there's approximately.
It's just absorb it. Go ahead. So let's absorb the good news.
We
Yeah.
found out there's about $7 million set aside for Spring Lake for their wastewater treatment plant by FEMA that the town has not accessed. So we'll be taking advantage of that.
Yes. They among other things, they have a real serious infrastructure problem with their wastewater.
It's 47 years old. It was significantly flooded by Florence and suffered a lot of damage.
It's been sitting there the whole time?
The town was aware of it. I know Samantha, in the short time she's been there, has had too many other fires to put out to deal with it. But yes, the town's been aware of it ever since it was awarded.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now I'm just thinking, how much control y'all gonna have on what they do with that money?
Well, we took it over.
We control the budgets.
Yeah, that was some good news.
That was good news.
That's good news.
Because they'll waste it. They'll waste it.
Sharon, I've got an update for Scotland Neck as well. You want me to go ahead and do that? Okay. On pages 20 and 21 and 22, you have an update for the town of Scotland Neck. They have continued to provide documentation that they need to monthly We are concerned because in our September review, the general fund budget was 23.7% expended for the year. The water and sewer was 19.9% expended for the year. So they are staying on point with their expenditures. They have the town is working to hire an administrator, but it is a long process. They're struggling to get adequate applicants. And we have still not got a completed contract for a third-party bookkeeper. We have met with them for about 8 months. And so we're still continuing to meet with the town. Questions? Okay. So a vote, yeah.
I'll accept a motion for a consolidated vote for the action items regarding Robersonville, Kingstown, Pikeville. No? Yes, and Spring Lake.
In order. So moved.
Beth Wood.
Yeah, Beth Wood.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Bass.
Mr. Paget. Oh, Bass. Wait, Debbie.
Mr. Paget.
You, Mr. Bass?
I'll second it.
Or was it Paget? I'm sorry.
It was Paget. It was Paget.
Paget. Okay, sorry. Mayor Paget, second.
Some of y'all could be Rich Little.
It's the disembodied voice.
The disembodied voice. Okay. Thank you. And further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
All right, this is five votes in one. 2 for Robersonville, 1 Pikeville, and 2 Spring Lake. Secretary Marshall? Aye. Secretary Penny?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Bass?
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer, Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Okay.
Now, very briefly, the feed nourishment policies or other information, or that's just the packet?
It's more or less in the packet. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer. But it was just a follow-up from last time. There were some questions about maturities on beach bonds and maturities in general.
Okay. Any questions from staff regarding the other information items? You met Ted Brent earlier, who's the chief of staff.
I'm sorry.
Well, I have one for Tim, and we can talk after.
We'll do it afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Susan has a brief presentation.
Okay.
I wanted to talk just a few minutes because the 2021 audit process is changing some, and it's going to impact the commission a little bit, the information that you get. So I just want to spend a few moments talking about the 2021 audit review process. There should be a PowerPoint in your packet. So beginning with the 2021 audit review process, we're not going to, the LGC is not going to be writing unit letters anymore. We've reworked the audit review process over the past couple of years to take a risk-based approach that uses some of the automation that we have available. The revision of this process took about 2 years, and because we had to actually revise the administrative code to implement it fully. A lot of fiscal staff, Sharon, Debbie, IT people have been involved in helping us improve these streamlined changes. So I appreciate all the staff help that we've had. You might still see some unit letter responses for older audits prior to 2021. Those will still be getting unit letters. But anybody beginning 2021 after that, they'll all be responding to us with their with their proposed changes.
Susan, I just want to take an opportunity. I think you got off to a rough start because what I heard initially is we weren't going to be doing unit assistance letters anymore. So let's take a breath and tell us how it's going to be different than how it is today.
Okay. What's going to happen is units are going to be responding to us instead of us sending letters to them.
And telling them what's already in the audit report.
Exactly.
They got the audit report.
Right.
Now, what are you going to do about it?
Yes.
Got it.
We have technology so that they can see.
I feel better already.
We have technology that once they key in their numbers from their current year's audit report, they'll be able to see what the financial performance indicators of concern are for that year, things that are outside our threshold. And so and they will be prompted to respond for those things. And we have provided a website that's got draft responses so they can start so they can pull that language and begin to use it to draft a response that will address what their issue is. It's the same sorts of issues. Financial performance indicators of concern are low fund balance in the general fund. It's liquidity issues, cash issues in the water and sewer. It's the same sorts of things that you've seen before, but the difference is instead of them sending us an audit and us looking at it and getting them a letter 3 months later, depending on other things that happen in between, they'll have to have a response to us within 60 days of us getting the report. The other change in these rules are...
And that includes any findings like bank recons not being done.
Absolutely.
Internal control deficiencies.
Absolutely, yep. Material weaknesses, significant deficiencies are another indicator. And
when they submit their audit, they're going to get like a score.
Exactly. It's a scorecard.
And then how do you, I think this is more dramatic, fantastic than it realizes. Then you're making it seem, I mean, we're talking about it as like it's an afterthought and agenda. It sounds like a big, possibly a good game changer.
It is.
How do you anticipate all the things that need to be on the scorecard to flip this?
We have a website that looks just like their scorecard. And so when they have a finding or a financial indicator that is outside our threshold, then they have to respond, and they can use our website to begin to draft responses.
But it's the same things that were always measured against.
It's the same things that were always measured against.
But it's just automated now.
It's automated. The difference is that the board, ideally, the board is going to get a draft response letter from the finance officer at the same time that they get the financial statements. So the financial statements will be in front of them, and there's that scorecard is part of what's required to be presented to the board. And at the same time, the finance officer should have a very rough draft of a response letter. And the board, within 60 days, will have to finalize that. They all sign it. And including, we prefer they all sign it, as well as the finance officer and the manager, administrator. So they're all on the same page, what they're going to do. And then they send it to us within 60 days.
And the response is a corrective action plan.
Yes.
But it's more detailed than what you typically see in the actual audit itself. So usually that's only just 1 or 2 sentences.
Yeah. Now there are financial performance.
Well, so there's some. I'm sorry. Go ahead. There's some prompt that tells them, "Hey, you need to act." There's a prompt in there somewhere, right?
Yes. They will get, their auditor will fills out data from their financial statements that goes into a spreadsheet tool that LG staff developed, and that spreadsheet tool highlights red when they have an indicator that they need to respond to us on. So you'll be getting a copy of their financial performance indicators of concern in your meetings, and you'll know where they should have responded. Now, all of the responses are not financial conditions. Some of them are things we want the board to be aware of because they may grow up to be a financial issue. For instance, one of the financial performance indicators of concern is that they have had a declining tax valuation. So if they've got declining property values in their community, that means that there's an economic issue that they need to address. It may not be a problem now, but it's probably going to be a problem in 5 years if they don't deal with it. So you may not get all of their responses because I might not bring you that one unless it informs you about something with their debt. But so you might see some indicators that you don't have a response for, but they are going to have to respond to us for all of them. Most of them are just the same things that you've been used to seeing. Late audits, low fund balance, inappropriately, low cash flows in water and sewer, the same sorts of things that you see. They're just the responses are being done differently. Trying to get the boards more engaged ultimately and get the units to own it because it's really their issue, not ours. So trying to take advantage of automation to get the issues out in front of them more quickly.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I'm really pleased, and lots of people have been involved.
Given the way we did it back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
There's a copy of the PowerPoint in your packet, and if you look starting on slide 5, there's several different examples of what the feedback they'll be getting looks like and how it indicates who they need to respond to.
I think this is a tremendous step in the right direction, and I like having the board members sign and the manager, everybody. That's great.
Yeah.
That's to make sure it doesn't get biased.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask who does the input, because if we have trouble with some of these units doing certain things, we're not going to get great input. But the auditors do all of the input for all of this?
The auditors do some of it, the units do some of it, but the finance, regardless of who does the data entry into the forms, the auditors have to verify. I'm sorry, let me back up. The finance officers have to verify that what their auditor has keyed into that form ties to their financial statements.
That's
so
great.
really it should have 2 sets of eyes on it before we get it. So we don't have to, we're not verifying that data anymore.
What are we doing for those that don't enter?
We don't approve their invoices.
Yes. We just don't accept it without.
We don't, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reporting process.
It's part of the reporting
That
process.
is awesome. You would hold 25% of the auditor's money.
Yeah.
If it don't go in there, if this stuff don't get put in the computer.
Rock on.
Now that's how you get to them.
Yeah, the money.
If you remember, this is Cindy Aiken. If you remember back when the commission had to adopt some rules, gosh, when was that, Deb? That's 19 before COVID?
No, it wasn't that. It was
the fall before. These are all,
yeah, it was pre-COVID.
right, all these changes are based on those administrative codes.
So that we had to put it in the auditor contract form to make the tie into for us to have quote any say over what the auditor needed to do. But yeah, and Melinda, we shouldn't forget Melinda.
Oh yeah, Melinda. We've had,
But the LGC's always withheld 25%.
oh yeah.
If the audit report didn't get it, this is a part of that audit report
It
getting in
is.
the door and still withholding that 25%. That's awesome.
And
That
this,
is
they're
awesome.
not doing any additional
Right.
work.
Right.
Same work, same level of work. The finance officers have to draft the response, but the auditors are not doing additional level of work.
And it's eliminating the step of our office sending a unit letter.
Yep. Yep.
Just skipping that step, and like Susan said, get a quicker response.
I used to work here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I remember.
You never forget those.
Alder's happy. I think we should adjourn.
Okay.
No, actually,
I just state for the record so that Mr. Grin's statement of economic interest review is entered into our minutes. That's all.
so somebody had to have the courage to raise their hand to get this concept launched. Who was that? I know a lot of people worked on it, but who really just?
Sharon Edmondson.
Something we've been trying to do for a long time.
Yes, Sharon Edmondson got it started.
And just.
So it's your recipe.
It's her vision. Yes.
Well, Melinda did a lot of the cooking.
I know.
It's fine, but
Yeah, Melinda Andrews, Lewis's wife, has worked with us as a consultant here.
It was difficult getting around.
Yeah, she used to be employed with us, and we've had Debbie Tomasco and Laura Rowe. Was it? I mean, we've had amazing staff cooperation to get this done, but it was Sharon's vision.
Sidebar question. Do you think, Marshall, do you think we're going to lose some auditors out there? Maybe they should be gone.
We might, but not over this. This is not additional work for them. So I mean, there is the same form they've had to do for years. We're just utilizing it in a different way. So I don't think, I've talked to auditors. We've been training them, telling them this is coming all year. We've got a website that Debbie has worked up. I've not gotten, they've got lots of questions, but I've not gotten any heartburn from them. When finance officers start drafting the letters, I'm expecting negative because they're that's a learning process for them.
This is a little bit of a sidebar, but it's sort of like our pension contribution deficit program that we have for people who are going to be paying enormous salaries or bumping somebody's salary. They can plug in to see if there's going to be a pension spike or not. And, it tells them right then. So people who sue us, I mean, they had all the tools they needed not to do that. If my memory's correct, when I first became the treasurer, I think some of these unit assistance letters weren't even going to the county chairs or the mayor or the council members or the commission members. Just like the city manager had it, no one else.
They didn't share it. Yeah.
Didn't
No one
share
else
it.
saw it.
And so they were really oblivious to what's going on. So.
And we've had one or two cases before this commission where the auditor wrote the response.
Oh, yeah.
One or two before this commission where the auditor wrote the organization's response, which is absolutely ludicrous.
So anyway, congratulations. Thank you all for participating in that. Just one housekeeping item, two housekeeping items. We met with Kevin Leonard a few moments ago, and then we'll be meeting with Rose and the league at some point. You always hear me talk about the legs and the arms, the toes, and the fingers of our state, which is mostly characterized as rural North Carolina. But I think we also need to start paying attention to some of the torso of our state, even though the census says how healthy it is. The fact is that some of these instances, we probably are seeing budgets go up while fund balances go down. I mean, we've dealt with so many things on this commission over the last 5 years, but if one of these big whoppers starts, when those big ships start to, whatever that naval term is, listing. I mean, it's just, there's so much weight, so much leverage with the enormity of some of these hundreds of billions of dollars of budgets. You're never going to be able to, it's going to tip over. So I'm not directing the staff to do this, but as you're thinking about things to do, if somehow or another we can start having some kind of red flag, that especially in these larger communities where we're seeing that the budget's going up by this amount and fund balance is actually going down. The reserves are going down. And because it's happening almost every week or every few weeks between the auditor and I, or Sharon, the staff, and I, where somebody said, the only way they've been making it, I said, how did this go on for so long? Well, they've been dipping into fund balance. They've been dipping into fund balance. They've been dipping into fund balance. And so I just think we need to do a little better job of anticipating some of that, especially before one of these great big boats starts to turn in the wrong direction.
I agree.
Just a thought. Members, in the December meeting, we're going to be dealing with Bald Island, just to remind you of that. And also to ask your opinion about holding our January 2022 meeting on the 11th of January, instead of right after the New Year.
Let me ask a question.
Yeah.
Where's the valuation for Bald Island? That makes sense and ties to something that makes sense to me. The two I've seen, they're not worth the paper they're written on. I could punch holes in them, and I'm not even an evaluator. So, is there a valuation coming that tells me how much that stuff is really worth? Tim.
There's not a third valuation.
And not one coming. So why is it on the agenda? I cannot loan money on something that I have no idea what the value is. We can't do that. The commission cannot do that. That's just ludicrous. This sounds so political to me. We're not about politics. We're supposed to be loaning money, and with this property and all that goes with it, so that it works, so that the organization that gets it, again, I don't care who gets it, can pay back the money. And if the assets are overvalued and we loan too much money, they will not make it. So if I'm not getting a third valuation that makes sense, why is it on the agenda?
Well, I'll take responsibility for putting it on the agenda because there's been fits and starts about trying to put it on the agenda up until this point. Well, there's been several motions to have it put on the agenda over the last 4 months, 5 months. That's accurate. And number one. Number two, there's a referendum on the ballot today in Bald Head that will, depending on how that referendum goes, we have an application that's in front of, we have two applications sitting in this building. The one application is for a revenue bond from the authority. The other application is for a GO bond from the village. Okay, now we're going to get to the price in a minute, but we're talking about the financing for just a second. So depending on how that referendum goes, the applicant being the village, because the authority is not issuing a referendum. It's not on the ballot. So depending on how the referendum goes, the village will have a choice to make, whether it's thumbs up or thumbs down, as to whether they would want to reapply or alter their application to come in with a revenue bond application, just like the authority has. Because currently, okay, but we still haven't gotten the price evaluation. Just hang on. I don't go to A to Z as fast as you do. So, but when you say why is it on the agenda, is because there's been fits and starts about this during the whole process, and I think we'll be a lot clearer tomorrow about what the next 4 weeks look like in terms of this particular agenda item. I thought the village was doing an evaluation of the valuation.
They did that.
I could do that. It's not worth the paper it's written on, so it's done. Okay, go ahead.
Wait a minute now. I thought the authority did two valuations.
Right.
Okay, those are the two.
The authority has done two.
Right.
Okay, and then
appraisals, certified valuation.
And then there's
that the village hired a third evaluator, appraiser to critique the previous valuations. And that's all they did. They did not come up with a new valuation. As you said, the auditor would. They just criticized the current ones that were before us.
Well, and I don't need the village to hire anybody because I've already asked questions that nobody can answer. Depreciation, I've asked to see the true depreciation numbers on those assets. That will give me some idea that depreciation is well understated in those valuations. I mean, I could just look at it and tell. If anybody spends any time with those valuations at all, you can tell that. But I want to get something clear here. So we're putting Ballhead Island back on the agenda, not because it fits the criteria to be on the agenda, but for political reasons.
This is Cindy. I don't want to speak out of turn, but if they have submitted,
No, their job is to look at what gets submitted, the application, and the numbers that come behind it to make sure that it's feasible. And then it gets on the agenda as a recommendation from the staff to me,
whether or not
and many get turned down because the numbers all don't work. Now, we've got two valuations that are not any good. So I don't know how we can put it on the agenda, bring it up for us to vote on when the valuations that this 57 million or whatever is no good, And it's so obvious. If you look at the tax valuation, assessment numbers, and the valuation, they are not this far apart, they are this far apart. And there's no valuations in the state of North Carolina that are this far apart. And again, everything that comes on this agenda, I'm thinking y'all are bringing it to me. You've done all the research, you've looked at all the numbers, but if you can't tell me those assets are truly worth the 47 million or whatever the valuations say they are, I don't understand why it's on the agenda to take up my time. Mr. Treasurer.
And I take responsibility for that because there's been.
Then I'm asking you to take it off the agenda because you're wasting my time.
Well, I personally don't think putting it on the agenda necessarily means we're going to have a vote up or down. I think putting it on the agenda means we're going to hash it out again, I guess, or hash it out with present information, which we're doing right now, to some regard.
That's not what
we haven't.
That's not what you're.
Well, if I may, it does give an opportunity to let the parties know what they need to do to be able to get it in shape to bring it here.
We've told them twice, your valuations are no good.
Well, and we told them we haven't had since the second one came in, we haven't said that publicly in a meeting.
Okay, be ready.
All right.
Because they spent 15 pages comparing Ballhead Island to Myrtle Beach.
Right, which is
ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. Okay, bye. Put it on the agenda.
Well, I want to be clear, we're not wanting to waste anybody's time.
That's a waste of my time. To sit in here for an hour and argue about numbers that I already know are no good.
Maybe that could be tightened up before that happens.
I don't know how. Somebody's trying to shove a valuation that is been bought down my throat because I'm a CPA. I've been into financials before. I read all the disclaimers that the valuator puts on there, and things like the numbers that were given to us we take to be true and accurate and reliable. Of course you do. But I'm saying nobody will give me the depreciation schedules of what those assets have truly been depreciated at, because I could use those and show you that the thing's overestimated to begin with, overvalued to begin with. But I haven't seen them yet.
Do we have the depreciation schedule?
We have their audited financials. I don't think this,
not for those
it's probably
assets.
just a number.
That's right. Not for those assets, those particular assets, you do not. They are not being given out by intention.
Okay, I'm asking that staff.
We can ask for that.
Provide the auditor and the rest of the LGC with that information.
Can we subpoena them?
And if by any
You have
chance,
some veto power, right?
She does.
As the auditor, I do, not as a local government commission member, I do not.
if they refuse to provide the necessary information for this body to make an informed decision,
They'll tell you something also.
then perhaps it's a no sale until the seller gets right, or whatever the reason is that things are being not disclosed, so that we can act in our responsibility to protect the public.
That's productive. I agree. Now, since we're on the subject of things people not knowing, is the revenue and the profit of the parking operation, we have that information. Is that public?
Where'd you get it from?
I think it's from their audited financials. So they gave us audited financial statements for the parking operation, the barge operation, and then for the ferry itself is under Utilities Commission, and so their audits go to Utilities Commission. A summary was done, historical, of those revenues and expenses, and that I know is posted on the village's website. The individual statements, financial statements aren't.
Are there any deficiencies in whether it's outdated, or are there any deficiencies in what you just said that you would like to see tightened up, sharpened up, or freshened up?
We had a conversation with them, I think 10 days ago, what we would need for December. One is the last numbers we have are the fiscal year end December 19. So they have now December 20 numbers, and they also have the summer, which is the big period. They have unaudited numbers for those, for how they operated their entities over this past summer. And so they're going to provide us with those numbers.
My question for this is, so you got these revenues coming in the door. I can increase the revenues anytime I want to cover this loan, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, to prevent that being through the roof, I want to know what the true value of the assets that are being bought are worth. Because you can always up the revenues to anything you want to cover a loan. And that is not how this should be done. We should be paying the fair price of what those assets are truly worth. And all I want to know is, what is that? And the depreciation numbers in both of those valuations were estimated, had assumptions in them that I absolutely do not agree with.
Mr. Treasurer, can I ask again, you told us about there's going to be a vote today at Bald Head. How clear is that? Is that a strict up and down, like the citizens say, yes, we want Bald Head to participate, we want Bald Head to make an offer, or is that a down, like, no, we want you to back out?
Just based on the vote.
Just regular GO bonds.
It's about GO bonds.
It's about the authorization for the village to issue GO bonds for this potential acquisition.
Up to
the valuation amount.
In their
okay, so if they
50,
I think it's 55 or 56.
55 million.
Yes.
okay, so if they vote it down, then they're off the table, right? Bald Head Island residents, that's off the table. That offer is off the table because they can't borrow the money. Am I right?
Well, I'll go out on a limb and say that the city council's on the ballot, the mayor's on the ballot, and if the referendum is voted down, then the village will have to make a choice whether to reapply, alter their application for it to be a revenue bond. So you'd have two applicants applying for the same asset where we need to get the valuation right, both using the same form of payment. Is that correct?
Okay. I have one more question.
Yep.
Maybe my memory is wrong here, but I was thinking there was a threat from the present owner, if this wasn't settled by a certain time, he had an offer and he could gonna go ahead and sell it. Is my right on that?
No, threat to chop it up.
There was I don't even want to comment on threats, but there's a lot going on. But I think that the Utilities Commission would probably have something to say about that. So I'm not sure, as Alder Wood said, that there was a threat that we would just chop it up and sell it to pieces.
Okay.
I'll just repeat what I've said all along. A year or two ago, I obviously knew there was a Bald Head, North Carolina. I'd never been there. And all I've ever desired in this situation is for there to be a governance and transparency and get the valuation right, so that it's not just for the residents, but the actual 6-to-1 workers who actually have to use the ferry for them to be able to have certainty about what the cost of getting to work is. That's all the three things I've ever talked about to anybody. So,
okay, one more question. At our December meeting, this would not be the only thing discussed. We'll have other things that we normally do, right? Correct?
Yes. Yes, there will be normal applicants on the agenda for December.
Okay. Well, as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Treasurer, you have the authority to set the agenda, and I'm fine with putting Bald Head on the agenda.
I used to think I had the authority to set the agenda.
Well, I think you do.
Marshall tried to convince me otherwise last year.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think you do.
I think we'll leave it at that, and we'll end on the good note that Susan left us with a few minutes ago. But we will we'll keep driving toward getting to asking the right questions, thinking about the unintended consequences, try to get the right outcomes. That's all we can do.
Mr. Treasurer, this is Mike Philbeck. May I ask one question?
Yes.
If Bald Head Island were to see the bond vote go down and were, as a governing body, to reapply as a revenue bond, isn't the maximum term on a revenue bond a shorter maturity, thus creating a higher payment?
Well,
Tim Ramaki.
Yeah, this is Tim Ramaki. I think the term of the maturity is really tied to the asset. So that's the way the administrative code and I think also the statutes are laid out. So I think in either case they could have, whether it's general obligation bond or revenue bond, they could have the same maturity.
They would just have a little bit higher rate if it was a revenue bond, I would imagine then.
Right. That's the big difference. With the general obligation pledged, it's backed by the taxing power of Bald Head, and so that will give it a slightly better credit rating, possibly, and then a lower interest rate.
Thank you.
Okay. Round robin, see, commissioners have any comments about that we normally ask you about? So.
Oh, it's not a for real.
Okay.
I did just want to thank the staff for the VUR status update and the beach renourishment update. I thought that was very useful information. Thank you.
Agree 100%. And I applaud the improvements on how we're going to be dealing with these unit letters or not unit letters.
Chairman Harris, are you on the ballot today?
Commissioners?
Were you on the chair?
No, I'm not the chair and not on the ballot again until, well, this is probably my last term, but 2024.
Okay.
Mr. Treasurer, county commission elections are in even numbered years, sir.
Right.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much. I want to thank staff once again for board time. Apologize for not knowing the difference in what we were actually considering with the hospital authority, and there's a lot going on that issue, so accept my apology.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
Just trying to let you off the hook.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Auditor Wood.
Aye.
Secretary Marshall.
Aye.
And Penny.
Aye.
And Mr. Bath.
Aye.
And Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
And Treasurer Falwell.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you. Oh, sorry. You have a guest.
Oh, Alicia Davis is here. She's my legislative liaison. Bill Toole went to the West Coast for the weekend and thought he was coming back, but American Airlines had to turn
Oh,
back.
no, yeah, I read about that this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.